Dear students, hello. Trigonometry, one of the most complicated subjects at school because there are lots of formulas that need to be memorized, and I felt like teaching you, showing to you some easy methods of understanding trigonometry easier, better, without having to memorize anything. So if you will be able to read and analyze the unit circle that I will just show to you, life with trigonometry will be much more easier for you. So, this is the unit circle which we use in trigonometry, and in the unit circle we start from 0 degrees angle. This is pi over 2, which is 90 degrees angle. This is 180 degree angles, pi, which is equal to 180 degrees. 3 pi over 2, which is 270 degree angle, and we complete the cycle, 2 pi, which is equal to 360 degrees angle. And the x-axis is the cosine axis, the y-axis is the sine axis, the vertical tangent to the unit circle is the tangent axis, and the horizontal axis is the cotangent axis. So when we take an angle of theta, we know that the reflection of the angle at the point that intersects the circle, its vertical y-axis, x-axis point is equivalent to its cosine value, and its vertical reflection in the y-axis, it is its sine value. So from the shape, we can easily see that if it is for 0 angle, it intersects nowhere, cosine, so cosine 0 is actually infinity. Okay, now I just came back to this and I correct it, because this shouldn't be infinity, this should be plus 1, whereas in fact cosine x always is between plus 1 and minus 1. So the point that 0 angle intersects with cosine is the one length equivalent to 1. Okay, we can continue now after the correction. Whereas cosine pi over 2 intersects with the x value on 0 point, so cosine pi over 2, we can see it's 0. Sine 0 angle cuts the sine point on 0 point, so it is 0 value. Sine pi over 2 is 1, because this is unit circle, so sine pi over 2 equals 1. And tangent 45 degrees, we can easily see from here, this is 45 degrees, that, and this each length is 1. So we can, it's 1. So we can easily see that tangent 45 equals 1, which is equal to cotangent 45, which is also equal to 1. So what I actually try to show you now here, what is the equivalent of sine pi minus 2 over theta? What is the cosine equivalent? Or similar equations with the same logic, you can solve all of them. So let's take again the angle theta. So sine pi minus 2, pi over 2 minus theta, it means that I come back as theta. Maybe it's better this time if I use another color of pen. This is the pi minus 2 over theta. Here we can see that this length is equal to that length, which means that sine pi over 2 minus theta equals equals to cosine theta actually. So here I can write it equals to cosine theta. Here what I'm trying to explain that you don't need to memorize these values. It's just enough if you can just read the unit circle. Let's make one more example to understand it better. So this time I will take sine pi minus theta. So this is pi, and I come as theta angle back. And I can see the sine minus p. Let me use another color this time. Hopefully it will be easier for you. So in sinus pi minus theta, we can see that it's this value here. And if we want to show you as cosine, it is actually, let's say, cosine theta again, because not cosine theta, it is cosine pi minus pi over 2 minus theta. That is, let me write here, pi over 2 minus theta. Why? Because if I take pi over 2 minus theta, then this length here, we can see that this length here is equal to that length here. So we can easily write this equation. In the same manner, I can see that sine pi over 2 plus theta, pi over 2 plus theta is this angle. This time I will use another color, so it's even easier for you. So pi over 2 plus theta equals sine pi over 2 minus theta. Why? Because the reflection of both points is the same, both angles is the same point on sinus. And if you want to show it as cosine, we can see that this length is equal to that length again, which is equivalent to cosine theta, which is in fact equivalent even to cosine minus theta, because it's again the same intersection on y-axis, so it is equivalent to cosine minus theta. After this demonstration on the back of the paper, although it doesn't look very nice, but still it will help you, I would like to show you briefly how you can find the values of 45 degrees, 60 degrees and 30 degrees in trigonometry, which are the most common, without having to memorize anything. I will draw here an isosceles triangle. Consider that it's isosceles. So because it is isosceles, this is 45 degrees, this is 45 degrees, this is 90 degrees, and you can consider that this length is 1. Since it is isosceles, this length is also 1. And from Pythagorean theorem, if we call it x, we say that x squared equals 1 squared plus 1 squared. It means that x squared equals 2, then x equals square root 2. In that case, sine 45 degrees, with signs mean opposite over adjacent, is 1 over square root 2. If you multiply both sides with square root 2, it means it's square root 2 over 2, which is also equal to cosine 45 degrees, because it is adjacent over hypotenuse, and adjacent over hypotenuse is again 1 over square root 2, and this is equal to square root 2 over 2. And tangent 45, you already know that it is opposite over adjacent equals 1 over 1 equals 1, and I have already shown also on this unit circle why it is 1. Now I would like to draw to you an equilateral triangle. Since it is equilateral, it means that each angle here, an equilateral triangle, so each angle here is 60 degrees. And I take a vertical from the middle. And if we assume that each edge is 2, then this is 1. This is also 1. And let's call it this time x, that one. So again, according to Pythagorean theorem, by the way, this is 30 degrees now, and this is 90 degrees. So x squared plus 1 squared equals 2 squared. This means that x squared plus 1 equals 4. And this means that x squared equals 4 minus 1 means x squared equals 3. Then x equals square root 3. So here x equals square root 3. Now, sinus 30 degrees, in that case, it is again opposite over hypotenuse, so it is 1 over 2. Sinus 60 degrees equals opposite over hypotenuse, which is square root over 2, or you can again multiply both sides with square 3. I should have said square 3 over 2, sorry for that, equals 3 over 2 square root 3. And cosinus 30 degrees equals adjacent over hypotenuse, which is square root 3 over 2, and it is equal then to sinus 60 degrees and cosine 60 degrees. Cosine, it is adjacent over hypotenuse equals 1 over 2, which is also equal, from here we can see, to sinus 30 degrees. Thank you very much for your attention.